On behalf of the Coalition, I just want to thank all of you for being here today for this important discussion on hunger on college campuses. You'll hear today from experts who will share statistics that are startling but not surprising. You'll hear stories from students that are moving but not uncommon. In a Commonwealth that prides itself on its world-class higher education, that invests millions of dollars into public education to reduce funding inequities that perpetuate the achievement gap, unfortunately, we've fallen behind in ensuring that nobody goes hungry. 1 in 11 people in Massachusetts is food insecure. However, that number is significantly higher for our students at public universities and community colleges. We all know why. The costs for higher education have skyrocketed. Efforts to improve affordability often miss the essential role that food plays in the retention, achievement, and graduation of students. From California to Minnesota, other states have taken decisive action to support students who struggle to afford tuition, books, and food. That's why we're here today. We're here today to hear from the students themselves about the problems that they face and the solutions that they would like to see. That's why we formed the Hunger-Free Campus Coalition, a group of anti-hunger advocates, school stakeholders, and most importantly, students, and hopefully all of you here today, united by the simple belief that no student should be hungry. I want to recognize and thank some of the legislators that are here today: Senator Lovely, Senator Comerford, Representative Domb, and other legislators who have supported this initiative, including chairs of the Higher Education Committee, Senators Goby and Representative Roy, and all of the other legislators who have co-sponsored this briefing and who are committed to solving this issue. And thank you all for being here today. I'm really excited about the conversation that we're going to have today and the movement that we're going to start to enact hunger-free college campuses in Massachusetts. Thank you very much for being here. I'd like to welcome to the stage Senator Lovely, Senator Comerford, and Representative Domb to share a few words.
Good morning, everyone. This is a tremendous turnout. I am just so very excited to be here this morning to help kick off this really amazing initiative. I thank you to the Greater Boston Food Bank and the work that you do and taking up this initiative. We know how important it is. I will tell you why I filed this bill. So North Shore Community College in my district, President Pat Gentile would be walking through the halls and listening to students say, "Geez, I'm hungry and I don't have any money. I can't go to the cafeteria. I can't even buy anything out of, a vending machine." So she created, some vouchers on her campus to be able to feed students. But it's really a Commonwealth issue. So I'm so proud to have both Senator Comerford and Representative Domb here today. Representative Moschino, who could not be here with us, but I think she has staff here, and really the entire legislature. Who would be able to really bring us together and let's figure this out. So I would like to at this time, let me apologize up front. The Senate is debating a very big climate bill today, which is a good thing. It's a great thing. It's going to probably be about the next 12 to 14 hours of debating these bills. So Senator Comerford and I, after our remarks, will have to slip over to the chambers, and we won't be able to stay for the entire presentation. But we do have staff here who will be taking notes and getting that back to us. So again, thank you everyone for being here. Such an important issue. Especially thank you to the students who are here. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you for your leadership on this, and I also want to thank Senator Ann Goby, who is my colleague on higher ed, chairs a beautiful committee, and I know wanted to be here as well. And of course, thank you to the rocking Rep. Domb, with whom I share a district back home in Western Massachusetts. I came to the Senate after having worked at the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts, and I have food bank colleagues here now, and I just want to say that the food bank's work in Western Massachusetts is groundbreaking. It's not only meeting the immediate demands of hunger, but it's working every day to work itself out of a job, which is all of our work, right? Because hunger is preventable. And that's what the food bank, the food bank laid down that gauntlet years and years ago and has been a prophetic voice in our region for that kind of justice. I want to recognize, I saw you, President Christina Royal. President Christina Royal from HCC invited me, so I have 3 public colleges and universities to which I'm accountable. HCC, you were right to point out, Madam President, I am not responsible for Holyoke. However, many Hampshire Franklin Worcester District students go to HCC. Many staff and faculty are working at HCC. I also represent Greenfield Community College and the University of Massachusetts. At HCC, I met a student, thanks to President Royal, who helped me understand the hunger and food insecurity plague, I will say, that is at HCC and what the college is doing. Also up at Greenfield Community College, where they've instituted a food pantry. Now we know, and we've said this in the legislature, that kids can't learn when they're hungry or food insecure or not sure where their next meal is going to come from. The same, the same truism that applies to K through 12 applies to higher ed. And I'm deeply grateful to presidents of colleges who are already moving forward initiatives, and I really am just so grateful to Senator Lovely and Rep. Machino and others who have been able to call us forward as a legislature to be as responsible as possible to this issue. So thank you to the organizers. I'm really indebted to the students and every one of you here for this briefing, and glad to be an ally in this work.
I also have a few thank yous to start with, including primarily the advocate organizations that have pulled us all together today and have really been pushing this issue, and a special gratitude to the students who are here, who are going to share their stories with all of us in this room, and then individually with their own elected officials following the briefing. And I hope that we'll all be debriefed on how those meetings went. I also want to recognize my colleague, Rep. Donato, for coming. Thank you so much. He and I were speaking earlier about how we know the legislature's concerned. I'm going to echo these comments from my colleague from the West. We passed breakfast after the bell, so we know that legislators understand that students can't learn if they're hungry, and that goes for students of all ages. And we know that our students on our college campuses and our university campuses are facing even more demands around their economic security, resulting from tuition, health fees, housing, transportation costs. Food gets put into that also. I want to recognize Holyoke Community College because your staff also sort of spearhead the regional effort to look at college hunger on all campuses in the Valley. And I have found their contributions in meetings that I've been able to attend invaluable to understanding all the different puzzle pieces that administrators have to deal with when sort of addressing these issues. My background before I was in the State House was working with a partner agency at the Food Bank of Western Mass, the Amherst Survival Center. And so through that lens, I can attest to the fact that not only the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts, although they're my favorite food bank, but all food banks in the Commonwealth are grappling with this issue, and they need our help. They need our help in terms of resources, they need our help in terms of leadership, and they need our help in terms of listening. And so I'm really eager today to participate in that exercise with everybody. I want to thank Senator Lovely for her leadership, as well as my colleague, Rep. Machino, who can't be here, the commissioner who is here, and my other colleague who's not able to be here due to a family emergency, but the House Chair of the Joint Committee on Higher Education, Jeff Roy, who's also very interested in this topic and who will be being briefed by his staff. So thank you everybody for coming.
I'm really here in 2 capacities. The first and foremost is as a former student who contended with many of the issues that the students that we care about are here to discuss today. While I was in high school, my family disintegrated and I was homeless for several years before ending up pregnant at 16. Though going to college was always a dream for me, I was receiving public benefits, which put a mountain of barriers in front of me for my ability to attend school, to work, and to receive public benefits. All of these conflicting and confusing rules and barriers had the net effect of disincentivizing my attendance in school. So I'm here today on behalf of all students whom, like myself, college was not inevitable. And I'm here today for all the students who were told implicitly or explicitly, college is not for you. I'm also here in a second and equally important capacity. I'm here representing the Hope Center for College Community and Justice, founded by Dr. Sarah Goldrick-Rao. The Hope Center is a nonprofit action research center who is in part known for our work on the Real College Survey. The Real College Survey is the nation's largest annual assessment of basic needs insecurity among college students, and it specifically evaluates food and housing insecurity. This survey fills an important gap in federal and state data collection, allowing insight into what students are experiencing and empowering higher education institutions and leaders and policymakers to make evidence-based decisions. We believe students are the best source to discuss what is happening with them. That's why the Hope Center study uses validated approaches to assess the security of food and housing using the students' own information, which they complete the survey, Our two most recent national surveys from 2017 and 2018 indicate the following. More than 1/3 of four-year college students and nearly half of all community college students faced food insecurity in the prior 30 days. We show similar numbers experience housing insecurity in the previous year. Almost 10% of four-year college students and as many as 14% of community college students were homeless in the previous year. These national numbers align with those uncovered in similar studies in California, in New York, and right here in Massachusetts, which the commissioner will talk about later. They are also supported by a series of peer-reviewed journals and articles. Our research at the Hope Center reveals that college is unaffordable for as many as 75% of all families. The fact that college is unaffordable reduces students' performance in high school, diminishes the odds they will get to and through college, and increases the chance they're going to end up with debt they cannot repay. Despite the costs and challenges, many people continue to enroll in college at increasing rates. They understand that education beyond high school is one of the best pathways to economic security. In fact, for the first time since 1975, low-income students are enrolling in college at rates higher than their middle-income peers. Outdated perspectives about who today's students are and the respective policies reflecting these views limit the ability of far too many students to pursue and achieve success in higher education. This in turn exacerbates income and racial inequality and creates a poverty trap. For some students, attaining a college degree is just the means to pursue a rewarding career. For me, my motivation was fear. I was desperate to break my family's poverty cycle, and having a child of my own only intensified this fear. I longed to be financially free, to be independent of government programs, and not reliant on anyone else for our needs, and I knew a college degree can improve my ability to do just that. But college is much harder for disenfranchised groups such as people of color, low-income parenting students, working first-generation and immigrant students who have significant financial challenges even after financial aid. And despite my challenges, I never had to consider if my race was a factor. That's the epitome of white privilege. I faced both federal and state policy barriers that restricted my ability to attend school full-time, and higher education was not designed for working parents. It subsequently took me 11 years to complete my bachelor's degree. In fact, it was 20 years ago this year when I sat in my welfare caseworker's office and she and I cried together when she told me I could no longer attend school and continue to receive public benefits. When students drop out of college because they cannot afford basic necessities like food, billions of dollars in federal and state higher education investments are undermined. Similarly, when students are forced to delay their degree attainment, as I was, it strains their resources, it discourages persistence, it also leaves a gap in the workforce and denies government critical tax revenue. We now live in an economy in which the vast majority of jobs require some form of post-secondary credential. Workers with post-secondary education benefit from the majority of jobs with livable wages, with employer-provided health insurance and retirement benefits. benefits. And overwhelming evidence links each level of post-secondary achievement with improved social, economic, and health outcomes. These include higher earnings and marriage rates, lower unemployment and single-parent births, and improved education outcomes for their children. Other states such as California, Washington, Minnesota, New York, and New Jersey, and even the federal government have started to recognize and address the challenges students face meeting their basic needs. That is because there's growing recognition that addressing basic needs insecurity complements state and federal workforce goals, as well as bolstering higher education attainment goals. Massachusetts has already taken some of these taken measures to address some of these issues, but can do so much more. Improving access to nutrition and other support programs are critical to reduce hardship and support the educational attainment of students that can lead to family-sustaining wages, improved intergenerational mobility, and a reduction in the racial wealth gap. Thank you for allowing me to be here today.
I'd like to ask each of you to say a few remarks, to introduce yourself, what school are you from, what are you studying, and then if you can share a little bit about how you directly, what your direct experience has been with hunger in college, how it's impacted your college experience, and what some ways are that you would like your university to support you, and perhaps how your university has already supported you. So yeah, we can start with Carla. Thank you.
Okay, so as mentioned previously, my name is Carla. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and I actually moved 2014 to come for a better education. And so I had a very different, actually I have a very similar path to many college students today. I started at community college. My mother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And so that's when my path began, and I started working from 2 to 3 jobs, participating in student clubs. And I tried to be the best student that I could, because that's all I could do to improve for my future. And my experience with college hunger is that the more that I tried to be a better student and actually afford, I had absolutely no access. And so I had to choose between my textbooks, parking pass. And this isn't even like living on campus, right? So technology, there's so much need in technology, like so many expenses. So most of my days where I have 75 cents, my lunch and my dinner is this bag of Cheetos, and that's all I'm gonna have today. I currently, after starting at community college, I started at North and Essex. I transferred to University of Massachusetts Lowell. I actually graduated December with my undergrad in international business and marketing. And I'm actually currently pursuing my master's in higher education, so I can help other students who go through the same thing we do. I'm excited to say that my schools have taken action through noticing these issues. My community college had partnered with the Greater Boston Food Bank to be able to provide food for our students, and my 4-year college has a swipe. What's it called?
Like a swipe it forward. Or...
Yeah, swipe it forward and food pantry. But obviously with the amount of students that we have that need those resources, that's not enough. That's far from what the students need. And so I'm hoping that we can talk more about what other things we can do to help our students.
I was born and raised in Nepal. So when I was 19 years old, I came to United States by winning the diversity visa lottery. So American government they give free visa in Nepal. So the American government they give Nepalese visa in Nepal, like a free visa in Nepal to come to United States. So once I moved to United States, I could not have, like I came to by myself and couldn't even speak in English. So I was working in the gas station. I worked in the gas station for like a 9 months. Then I met one of the faculty member from Bristol Community College, and he motivated me to go to Bristol Community College. I went there and I took like English classes for 9 months, almost a year. And then I was able to communicate in English with my professor and faculty and students. My professor told me, oh, there is a Greater Boston Food Bank. At the time, I was taking 21 credit or 19 credit per semester to improve my English and take engineering classes. And I did not have enough time to buy food or stuff like that. So one of my faculty members told me, you should go to Greater Boston Food Bank. We have once a month, and you can get a free food. And I used to get a free food. Then I become like a volunteer once a month. Then like a distribute like a food to other people, and I was like really passionate how like a Greater Boston Food Bank helped me like today who I am today, and I graduated from Bristol Community College of Engineering, associate degree in engineering. Currently I am doing like a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering and Master of Science in Engineering Management at Northeastern University at full ride. So by volunteer Greater Boston Food Bank, that allowed me to build a confidence, like I had a lot of confidence, and I built a lot of strong relationship between faculty, staff, and faculty members who were like used to volunteer in the Greater Boston Food Bank. And I was also the member of like a multicultural club, international club, vice president of Asian club, vice president of the STM club, and that helps me a lot to like have a strong relationship between like a student and the faculty member, and that would allow me to like get a good education, and actually that helps me a lot. Like Greater Boston Food Bank allow me a lot to do a lot of confidence and do a lot of things in my life. Yeah.
So my name is Bev Pettiford, and I'm gonna just break the mic. I'll just take it out. So a first generation graduate of Quinsigamond Community College. Can I get a shout out for PCC? I began my education at 52 years old because I do things backwards, but it's never too late to educate. I graduated with many awards and 2 associate's degrees. And now I'm currently at Worcester State in Urban Studies. And I'm going to get my bachelor's soon and then go on to my master's so that I can work in social work advocating for children. How I am impacted by this hunger at college is that some days I have to go to school hungry. And that's because I used to be on welfare. I have 2 disabled kids. I'm a single mom. Had welfare, SNAP, you name it, Section 8, but I got a better job because I had the associate's degree. And guess what? They took away all my benefits. So now I pay market rent, oil, and a host of other things that I didn't have to pay for before. And they cut my financial aid. So now stretching a dollar is hard. So I went to a workshop, and it was about hunger. And after, they gave out these little plates, and you could fill out some comments on how you liked the workshop. But they had snacks there. Wasn't that great? So I said that I appreciated the fact that there was something to eat because I was hungry that day. That information got passed along to Joanne, who's the director of Urban Action Institute. And she told me about the pantry. But like most students, you don't want to have the stigma of going to the pantry. And then she told me about a program called Pass It Along. So you can take your one card and you can have meal plans put on your one card. However, I didn't know that you could only use it in the cafeteria. So I went to the balance box thing where you check your balance and it said 0. I was like, well, I'm not using this card. I was too embarrassed to go back and ask. But after days of being hungry, I said, let me find out how this thing works. It only works in the cafeteria. So while the balance was reading 0, there were some meals on there. To be able to eat with my fellow students, because I'm a commuter, is a way for retention. It's a social thing that helps you feel part of the college. So I'm really grateful. Let's see. Did I have anything else I wanted to say about that? So I'm here to advocate for students who don't have a big mouth like me. Because I know there are plenty of students sitting beside me in my classrooms that are hungry. I don't know if it's their stomach growling or mine, but they're too afraid to admit to the situation. And I'm hoping today we can ignite some fire to the legislation to be able to provide some funding for free meals at school.
Senior political science and journalism major at UMass Amherst. Thank you. I'm really appreciative of the opportunity to speak here today. I come here with a sort of a unique experience with food insecurity. I am the oldest of 7 siblings in my family. First generation college student, low income college student, and when one looks at me, what they don't realize upon first glance is that at this very moment, all of my other siblings are currently living in a homeless shelter. My family has been homeless since 2012, 2011. I am originally from Wilmington, Massachusetts, which is a bit northwest of Boston, but I actually haven't lived there since that time. And I long saw college as the way to transcend that socioeconomic background in the ways that society and my teachers and this faculty at my high school saw me as not being worthy of the ability to attend college. Now, after being able to come to universities such as UMass, there are so many issues that many students who are food insecure suffer. Because of how low of a socioeconomic status that my family has, and the merit that I had in high school, I'm actually fortunate enough to not suffer direct food insecurity on college campuses. However, I remember when I first got to UMass, while I had the benefit of a meal plan, having to transition between an environment and a homeless shelter in which literally the only thing that I could eat with my family was canned foods or chicken pot pies, sort of similar to that when we were living in hotels when I was in high school. And then to jump between that to unlimited food, really you're living a double life in so many ways. To the point where you feel like you don't actually belong and you question whether you actually belong in a university like that. At the same time, there are just so many issues, institutional issues at the university. There's a complete lack of economic diversity. If you look at, there was a New York Times study done, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, and it was there are 46% of the students in the UMass system are from the top 20% income-wise. 6% are from the bottom 20%, which for the UMass system, which should be serving working class, middle class, low income students, it is criminal that it is not supporting students like that and is disproportionately serving those that are at the top. So in my experiences, while I have not directly experienced campus food insecurity, I am a child of food insecurity, I am a child of poverty, and my siblings are still living in that. So through my time at UMass, I've sort of tried to build networks of support for first generation and low income students. I am the president of the now first generation low income student partnership at UMass, which up until actually last December, there wasn't a student organization centered around that community, which I'm really happy about. And then additionally, we have done a lot of work around food insecurity. There is a renowned movement for an institutional food pantry, which is kind of ironic given that UMass Amherst prides itself on having the #1 dining system in the nation. When 1 in 4 students are food insecure, there are many questions to be asked as to who that #1 dining system is actually serving. Especially when my peers, my friends, and my community members are the ones that have to sacrifice their academics or have to sacrifice their mental well-being to not eat, to actually get a degree to transcend their socioeconomic background, to somehow meet this, to somehow fight this stigma, this class stigma. It's just a self-perpetuating cycle. I know I'm sort of ranting here, but it has defined my entire existence as a first generation and low-income student, and I will do whatever I can to make sure that my siblings and the people around me and the people that are suffering situations like this do not suffer in silence anymore. It's just a very, very complicated situation. While I don't directly suffer from food insecurity, I know what it feels like to be hungry to the point where you stop feeling the actual physical pain of hunger. And that is something that no child should ever have to face or suffer. So yeah, that's what I have to offer, and I really hope that UMass and the state commits to funding a food pantry, commits to lowering meal plan prices, commits to institutionalizing a food swipe donation program, and actually creates a dining system that is #1 not just for the affluent members of the university community, but for everyone. And I hope this extends to not only just UMass Amherst, but to all public universities in the Commonwealth. We should be serving working class and low income students just as we serve every other student at universities, at public universities in Massachusetts.
Delighted to see all of our good friends in the legislature who've been very supportive. It's an honor for me to join you we're still morning, I think. I wanted to begin by saying that Massachusetts has done something as a state that no other state has done. And I think it's important to acknowledge this. I think it's important to celebrate it. It's very timely. The Massachusetts Board of Higher Education is the first state in the nation to elevate equity as the #1 policy objective for a system of higher education. We're very proud of that. The question is, what does that mean? How does that affect students? How does that change the lives of students? So I'm going to talk briefly about that. So we're working to ensure that all groups of students have the means to earn college degrees at the same rate, regardless of race, ethnicity, zip code, or income. I mentioned zip code because we know that in Massachusetts, zip code is often destiny. Where you grew up determines your life chances for the rest of your life. And we have to change that. Massachusetts is known as the education state. I just came back from 4 days in Washington, D.C., meeting with the Department of Education, accreditors, and they look to Massachusetts when it's higher education, education at any level, they look to Massachusetts. I'm proud of the work that we've done, but I'm also very honest about the work that we've done and honest about the Massachusetts reality. And I say Massachusetts is the most educated state in the Union. I have all the data to show that, but we have among the biggest opportunity gaps in the Union. The differences based on race, particularly race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and yes, zip code are huge in Massachusetts. One thing that I am proud of as well is that in December, the Board of Higher Education met to propose a budget. And oftentimes, when we talk about the budget for public higher education, we often say, this is the budget we think we can get. These are the resources we think we can get. And we changed the narrative. Because equity is our primary objective, the narrative was, what budget does Massachusetts public higher education need to deal with equity and to ensure equity? And one of the things that we decided is Massachusetts, and we started 2 years ago, is going to eliminate unmet need for all college students going to our public institutions. Let me define that. We define the costs of instruction. If we take the cost of instruction, tuition, fees, and books, you all know that. You subtract out any financial aid a student might get, and the difference is unmet need. And we have been providing in the community colleges financial aid to cover that unmet need for all students. We started with 6 students taking 6 credits or more, and we're likely going to reduce that. Those students that are only taking 3 credits. That's important. That deals with affordability. But there's another aspect of college costs that is oftentimes not discussed, which is the costs of attendance. The costs of attendance are precisely the things that these students have been talking about. It's not only tuition fees and books and supplies. The costs of attendance are food insecurity, homelessness among our college students, transportation, child care, medical care, could go on and on. If we really want to create an environment that is equitable, that gives folks the same opportunities for success, we need to address those issues. In that budget discussion, the board, I'm very proud of what the board has done, basically said, we want to put forward a budget of principle that supports the equity agenda. So we put a budget, the biggest budget anyone has seen from the Board of Higher Education. Whether that budget will become a reality this year or not is hard to predict. K through 12 just got 1.5 billion over 7 years to deal with inequities in that system, and I applaud that. And I applaud those legislators that supported that. We're not asking for 1.5 billion. We don't need 1.5 billion. But higher education, if it is going to be serious about equity, has to start thinking in broader terms. It has to be a bit courageous, and we have to be principled. Today in this nation, principle often doesn't count as much as some of us would like. But principle is important. What do you believe in? And whether the money is going to flow or not is a whole different question. The important issue from my perspective is to just put forward your principles and your beliefs. So using a definition of food insecurity provided by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the annual survey by our friends at the Hope Center for College, Community, and Justice found that 29% of Massachusetts community college students and 20% of State University and UMass students were suffering from very low levels of food insecurity, hunger. That means almost a third of community college students and 1 in 5 students in our universities were eating less because they didn't have enough money to buy more food. My hope is that we never normalize such student experiences. The concept of a hunger-free campus must never be viewed as a radical notion. In order to be ready to serve a diverse population of students in an equitable fashion, our campuses must provide the physical sustenance needed to sustain academic nourishment.